What happens when a renowned civilian aircraft manufacturer decides to enter the military market? What happens when it challenges the leaders who have dominated for decades with its newest project? What happens is going to be interesting. Hello aviators, Sky here, and today we're going to meet a bold newcomer, examine it in detail, and decide if it has what it takes to really shake up the veterans camp. Introducing the Embraer C-390 Millennium. The Brazilian aerospace corporation Embraer has entered the 21st century in excellent shape, and their main achievement was the creation of the E-Jet family, a new generation of regional jet airliners that quickly became a hit and conquered the market. Seeing the success of the project, the company sought to expand its line and looked into the military market, where it was already present, but relatively modestly. And a rather daring idea arose, to take its hit E-190 and create on its basis a military transport aircraft. The first thought, strange idea. What kind of military transport can be created on the basis of the E-Jet? Of course, we are not talking about a simple remake, but about creating a new machine, just using some of the existing solutions, onboard systems, some design elements, engines, and so on. It should have turned out to be something with a lifting capacity of about 19 tons, between the light C-27J or C-295 and the great and terrible C-130. The second question is conceptual. Light and medium military transports are turboprops, and for a good reason. They are inferior to jets in speed and altitude, but they are more flexible and work near the ground, can fly slower, perform various tactical tasks, and their requirements for airfields are much lower. Jet engines have always been the prerogative of heavy transports like the C-17 or Il-76, which first of all must carry a lot of cargo fast and far, and their lesser flexibility is excusable. The idea of making a medium-sized jet transport was risky. But by 2007, having assessed the risk, Embraer received the backing of its homeland, the Brazilian government and Air Force. The military agreed to finance the development and be the launch customer, but with one condition. They wanted to replace the aging C-130s, and therefore wanted an aircraft not a step down, but at least its level, with the carrying capacity, versatility, and capabilities. Creating a direct competitor to the Hercules, the most popular medium-sized transport in the world, was a serious challenge for Embraer. But the gain could also be huge, because the market is serious and, let's be honest, there are not many participants in it. At the same time, there was a chance. The C-130 is a legendary machine, respected by the military all over the world. But we are talking about an aircraft that first took off in 1954. Yes, it has been modernized many times, but any improvements have a limit. Conceptually, it is still an aircraft that remembers President Eisenhower. Putting a completely new model, stuffed with the most advanced technologies, against the grandfather could work. Embraer wasn't the only one to see this opportunity. Over the course of several years after the program was announced, many companies from different countries joined it. In 2012, Boeing came along, seeing in the project not only a promising investment, but also a competitor for Lockheed Martin's brainchild. Corporate dances were still going on. Meanwhile, the work was enormous. With such a bar, the scale became completely different. In general, nothing remained of the E-190 base, and the aircraft was created completely from scratch. The configuration, systems, and parameters changed. Payload capacity of 19 tons was no longer enough, and it began to grow, first to 21 tons, approximately like the C-130, and then even more. And the work was being carried out actively. The first flight of the aircraft, which received the index C-390, took place in February 2015. However, things didn't go so fast after that. The problem was not so much in some technical difficulties, but in the limited resources. Funding assumed the creation of 2 prototypes, although ideally 4 or 5 were needed. They flew very actively, but the test program was large. 2 aircraft were pathologically insufficient, and the deadlines were delayed. Meanwhile, during the testing process, the aircraft had to not only confirm their performance, but also prove that they are no worse than their turboprop counterparts. To do this, Embraer implemented into them probably everything that was possible. Let's see it already. The overall appearance is quite classic for jet military transport aircraft. A high wing, T-shaped tail, a relatively wide fuselage, and large extensions at the bottom. A kind of younger brother of the Kawasaki C-2. At the same time, the presence of all the components of a full-fledged military transport aircraft with similar dimensions made it visually slightly unsightly, kind of plumb and humped, because of which it even seemed small. The dimensions say otherwise. Length 35.2 meters, wingspan 35 meters. It is of course smaller than its jet brothers, but noticeably larger than the C-130. The same in terms of weight. Maximum takeoff weight is as much as 87 tons. The Hercules is lighter. To ensure high cruising speed, the wing was made swept. And here there is only one wing. It is assembled at the factory as a whole and then installed on the fuselage. At the same time, with a high cruising speed, it was necessary to provide low speeds. This task was entrusted to the high-lift devices, very advanced. Each console has two large sections of slats stretched along the entire length. Behind them there are large slotted flaps, deflected by as much as 40 degrees. And on top there is a whole row of spoilers. The result was quite decent. Cruising speed of 470 knots, service ceiling of 11,000 meters. An average figure for a jet aircraft, but in comparison with turboprops, this is a serious trump card. Minimum speeds, thanks to all the efforts, were reduced quite decently. The aircraft can stay at a mark of only 104 knots. The descent rate tests were interesting. For example, if the destination is in a dangerous place, and it is better not to linger at low altitude. The aircraft was able to descend at a speed of 2,700 meters per minute, followed by a quick landing. Earlier, even extreme descent scenarios were considered using reverse thrust in the air. Something similar was once tried on the C-17, but apparently they decided that this was too much, and limited themselves to installing the infrared countermeasure suit in case of a missile attack. The landing gear, as expected in its class, is squat and quite powerful. The front leg is two-wheeled. The main gear is equipped with four-wheeled bogies. Moreover, these bogies tilt slightly when released, which helps soften the touchdown on the runway. Something similar can be seen on large airliners. The wheels are large with low pressure. They are soft and work better on unpaved airfields. Finally, the main reason for all the arguments: the jet engines. The C-390 received a pair of V2500-E5 turbofan engines from International Aero Engines, creating a thrust of up to 139 kilonewtons each. The V2500 is a very common engine, which is installed on the Airbus A320 airliners. They are already proven, reliable, and economical, more or less. The advantage in terms of economy and maintenance is obvious, but there is also a price. In terms of flexibility of operation, they are still inferior to turboprop engines, which affected the minimum flight modes and takeoff and landing performance. To work with medium cargo, it needs a runway about 1 kilometer long. This is not very much, but I would not repeat the old games of Hercules landing on an aircraft carrier. In addition, some limitations are noted in hot and high conditions, but only in extreme cases, if the airfield is located very high in the mountains. This problem can be solved by modifying and boosting the engines, but neither Embraer nor the customers see any sense in this for now. The military were quite pleased with the aircraft. Here we can answer another complaint about jet military transport. Turboprops, after all, find it easier to work on unprepared runways, while turbofans do not like debris flying into them. The nuance here is that turboprop engines at one time were equipped with relatively small, simple metal propellers. But time passed, and we now see new propellers, efficient, beautiful, multi-bladed, large and composite, which are easier to damage and harder to repair. Meanwhile, jet engines have evolved, and with the addition of a number of extra measures, they are no longer behind propellers. There are some limitations in the use of thrust reverser. Dust can get into the fan, but again, this risk is mitigated by landing procedures. Embraer paid a lot of attention to this issue. The engines are located high, and a series of tests confirmed that nothing will just fly into them. The risks are not zero, but within acceptable limits. especially considering the advantages. In addition to better flight speeds, this scheme also provided other bonuses. Instead of 4 engines, you now need to service 2. It is simpler and cheaper. In addition, such a power plant, excellent aerodynamics, speed and modern systems gave a range boost. The aircraft has a maximum range of 6,240 kilometers, and with a load of 14 tons, about 5,000 kilometers. This is significantly more than competitors. Besides, the range can be increased even more by hanging fuel tanks and refueling in the air. What did you think is this long rod sticking out of its forehead? In any case, the C-390 may be inferior to its colleagues in the field, but it carries cargo much faster and farther, which is quite noticeable at long distances. So, the main part for which the plane was made is the cargo hold. It has a length of 18.5 meters, a width of 3.45 meters, and a height of 2.95 meters. Its normal load capacity is 23 tons, and the maximum is as much as 26 tons. This is significantly more than that of the Hercules. The plane, which was originally planned as something between light and medium transports, ended up in a niche between medium and heavy. The compartment can accommodate a pair of M113 armored personnel carriers, 1 Black Hawk, 80 soldiers, or 66 paratroopers. There could have been even more space, but in the front part of the cabin, they allocated space for a rest area, a lavatory and lockers for the crew and passengers. The guys who built airliners and business jets could not forget about comfort. There are many doors here. The main one for loading and unloading is located in the tail and is divided into 2 parts. The upper one rises and the lower one descends, working as a ramp. In addition to it, in the tail section, there is another pair of doors for paratroopers. They rise, opening a convenient exit. Plus, the lower fuselage extensions form a convenient step for jumping. Plus, there are retractable air deflectors that protect from the oncoming airflow. A full set. There are also 2 doors in the front, the main one on the left for the crew, the emergency one on the right. Plus another pair of emergency hatches on top. This makes the aircraft quite a worthy landing craft, not inferior to its colleagues. The equipment, one of the advantages of the new aircraft, is the most advanced. A full set of modern suits, fly-by-wire controls, a large number of modular systems, synthetic vision, as well as the Collins ProLine Fusion flight deck with 5 large multifunctional displays connected to side sticks. This is already a legacy of Embraer's experience in civil aviation. They, together with Collins Aerospace, have long been using the same ProLine Fusion in their business jets. And it has yielded results. The aircraft controls are excellent, it provides a lot of assistance in missions, and is probably much cheaper to maintain than similar aircraft with their expensive, specialized systems. The crew here varies. 2 pilots are directly responsible for flying. Plus, another terminal can be installed in the cockpit, responsible for specialized tasks, such as remote control or refueling, or search and rescue tools. Another workplace is located in the cargo hold. There sits the loadmaster. Of course, an important aspect of military transports is a very wide glazing of the cockpit. The windows here are simply enormous. The visual nuance is that their size, again, creates the illusion that the plane is small, which, as we have already established, is not the case at all. The public debut of the new transport, officially named KC-390 Millennium, took place at the Farnborough Air Show in 2016. In the autumn of 2018, after the prototypes had been flown about 1900 hours, the coveted type certificate was received. In September of 2019, the first machine was delivered to the Brazilian Air Force. The new Embraer KC-390 Millennium military transport aircraft was officially born. And now the question, why is Millennium sometimes called C-390 and sometimes KC-390? The answer to this is in the functionality. The C-390 is the name of the basic military transport aircraft. The letter C stands for cargo, just like the C-130, C-295, C-5. The KC-390 is in turn a modification of the tanker transport, like the KC-130, KC-135, or KC-46. Yes, the KC-390 can not only refuel in the air, but also refuel others. The Millennium has other options. For example, Embraer is actively testing a modification of a firefighting aircraft, a relevant topic in our time. There are also ideas for creating a civilian version, with removed military equipment and an extended fuselage. Despite the fact that military transport aircraft are rarely successful in the commercial market, Embraer continues to push this idea, although for now at the level of assessing prospects. Until 2019, the aircraft was officially called the KC-390, but then Embraer apparently decided that it was not worth narrowing the market, and returned to a broader designation. The base is the C-390, and the rest are variants. The first customer of the C-390 was the Brazilian Air Force, which was expecting 28 aircraft to replace its aging C-130 fleet. Once in service, the aircraft began actively flying, both domestically and internationally, participating in military exercises, humanitarian missions, exhibitions, and expeditions. On the world market, the C-390 is openly presented as a jet alternative to the C-130, and not only more modern, but also cheaper. In 2016, the aircraft cost about $55 million. Now the price tag has reached $85 million, but a new Hercules is still more expensive. In addition, given the use of more modern solutions and technologies, including those developed in the civilian sector, Embraer has managed to reduce the cost of operation. At first glance, this is not so critical for a military aircraft, but if you take a decent fleet, which after all does not save the world every day, and calculate the decades of its life cycle, it may turn out that you can save a ton of money, which even for the military is not endless. Put together, all these factors made the C-390 a very interesting option for many countries. The first foreign customer, even at the testing stage, was Portugal, which ordered 5 aircraft. At that time, they were still afraid to take an unfamiliar machine, but Embraer had long-standing partnership relations with the Portuguese aviation industry. And after the launch of production and deliveries, a full-fledged pool of customers began to appear. Hungary ordered 2 aircraft, the Netherlands 5, Austria 4, the Czech Republic 2, and South Korea 3. The Koreans, with other things being equal, were drawn by the opportunity to participate in production cooperation. In addition to the already known customers, several countries in Europe, Africa, South America, and the Middle East are interested in the aircraft. The opportunity to participate in cooperation under the program attracts not only the Koreans. India, with the framework of the MTA, or Medium Transport Aircraft Program, may order 40 aircraft at once. If the negotiations are successful, this will be the largest contract for Embraer. However, with all this noise, I have to mention that the program is still in the early stages of production. Only 9 or 10 aircraft have been delivered by 2024, and the company is still continuing to increase production. In any case, the C-390 is a very interesting aircraft, which with all its new technologies has entered a rather conservative niche, where until now old machines dominated. The presence of the C-390 on the world market will grow, including NATO countries. It would be an interesting situation if the US armed forces were interested in purchasing the aircraft, but I think Lockheed Martin will do everything to ensure that their aircraft remains dominant at home. We'll see who ends up stronger, the legendary Hercules or the child of the new millennium. Good luck to both. And you, fans of watching aviation and corporate battles, like and subscribe to the channel. Fast flights on interesting planes, and soft landings to you.